Good evening and welcome to this edition of DeFacto Review, a weekly roundup of the biggest stories shaping Mongolia. Here with us tonight is our commentator and economist, Jargat of DeFacto.
Good evening.
And my name is Dilko. We're live on Facebook at V Television. We want to hear your thoughts, so send us your comments on Twitter with hashtag Jargat_DeFacto. Coming up on the program, the 4th Eastern Economic Forum was held in Vladivostok. Teachers' strike has temporarily suspended. A study of legal misconduct in Mongolia was recently published. So moving on to our first topic of the night is the 4th Eastern Economic Conference that was held in Russia this year. And some of the people that were in attendance was the President of China, Xi Jinping, Prime Minister of Japan, Shinzo Abe, and Prime Minister of the Republic of Korea, Lee Nak-yong, as well as our President, which was his second time there at the forum. So what was discussed at this forum that was of significance to Mongolia?
Well, this forum itself is devoted to attracting foreign direct investment from Asia to Russian East. That's why it's called East Economic Forum. It was the initiative of President Putin, and every time he comes, and then other countries' leaders are coming in kind of summit in a way happening every September in Vladivostok. Our President Batolga was the second time there. Well, the importance of the event for Mongolia, a country like Mongolia, is a lot more political, more symbolic, because our president could meet these leaders you have mentioned. And during this forum, many businesses who have been working already during a year to create a business or invest in businesses in this area, preparing their contracts and the signing during the event usually. So this is the tradition. It happened to be a tradition now. We don't have information. It looks like not much Mongolian business delegation is there. One reason because Mongolian economy is small compared with all these countries. Mongolian businesses are small relatively, not to invest to mega projects in East Russia. But there was a talk about opening Mongolian trade representative office in Vladivostok, which I hope will give more information to Mongolian private sector about the business opportunity in that area, the port area of Russia East.
And what about, was there any progress on the China-Mongolia-Russia economic corridor?
Well, this corridor issue is a very long talking subject. Now, good thing is we are now from last year talking more, because when two presidents, Russia and Mongolia, met in Qingdao, they talked about additionally to other corridors, they talked about the natural gas pipeline. So thus it is this super corridor, if it is implemented, will be consisting of power, electric power line, and natural gas, petroleum, fiber optics, and auto and rail roads constructions.
And you just mentioned this gas pipeline that is supposedly going to be from Russia to China going through Mongolia. A recent comment made by Jarsky, the head of the Russian pipeline group, said that in reality this gas pipeline going through Mongolia is not very likely, nor is it possible in reality. So how reasonable do you think it is for the for the pipeline to go through Mongolia?
This Jarsky, Mr. Jarsky, is not turned out this working group on official site. He's independent expert group, expert, and he said that it's very doubtful that it will go through Mongolia. But however, the reality and pipeline economics in case of Mongolia talks differently. Let me talk a bit about that part. Russia is 1/4 of the world proven reserve of natural gas, which is about 47 trillion cubic meter total volume. And all this huge amount is staying, 70%, at least the production now in the western part of Siberia, with Urengoy, Yamburg, and Medvedji. These are the three big oil fields, the natural gas field of Russia. The remaining is staying in the eastern part. It's called Eastern Siberia, and Eastern Siberia, eastern directions, and also Sakhalin. And now we talk about the pipeline to China, which is coming from northeast Baikal all the way around Baikal, and it goes around 2,200 kilometers all the way to reach to the border with China. They have also Amur River piece of the route. And altogether, this project is supposedly to be $55 billion project. But this project is almost done except last 40 kilometers line. And Russia, with all this Western sanctions, the ruble is going very down. And it is not that easy to complete that remaining end. And also, after 10 years negotiations, they have finally agreed the price, and they have signed a deal in 2014 in May in Shanghai for $400 billion worth natural gas will be bought by China from Russia through that pipeline. It's 1,400 millimeter diameter, one single big pipe, extended that long, and it will bring it can bring 38 billion cubic meter ton a year, and for 30 years. That's the amount of the very big grand deal, the largest deal after the Soviet Union made from the side of Russia. And so this project now more or less are becoming close to the end. And yet Russia also talking about this one is called Power of Siberia 1. But here, Power of Siberia 2 is from Urengoy. The pipe goes all the way down. Now they have already piped to certain areas where people live, but they will extend it through the border with Russia. There's a small piece of border in between Kazakhstan and Russia, Kazakhstan and Mongolia, and that pipe will go through that to Xinjiang province of China. So they are talking about that. They now need to agree on the price. But the price that agreed is on the eastern side of, it's called Power of Siberia. One is $380 per 1,000 cubic meter of natural gas. So these two pipelines are there. This one is not yet started, but this one is almost completed. But however, all this huge project is still very far reaching the Chinese border, still very far from the main consuming large cities. Because China large cities need natural gas more than ever before. Why? Because the war with the carbon, because they smoke. So China, Beijing, Shanghai need to have a 10 days reserve of gas, natural gas, so that they can continuously supply and support and sustain this better sky, better air. So they need, in spite of everything, China will need more and more natural gas. However, as I said, this two, and even this one through the Xinjiang, this one is even way more far than the final consumers in China. The closest line from Kovikinsky, this is the largest 2.5 trillion proven reserve natural gas field in eastern Siberia, nearby Irkutsk. And this, as our president suggests, and also governor of Irkutsk is suggesting, is from Kovikinsky to Irkutsk, then Ulaanbaatar, then border, then China. This total about 2,000 kilometer line will be the shortest line to reach Beijing, where they need the most natural gas reserve. So whether the people like or not, this is a reality. This is pipeline economics. And plus also China today became largest importer of natural gas. After China was after Japan until the mid of this year, but now the largest importer of gas. Though China is producing today 60% of our domestic consumption itself inside, and the remaining 40% half divided by LNG, liquefied natural gas. The other is the gas by pipeline. They bring pipeline from neighbor countries directly by pipe, the gas, but from Australia, America, Canada, they bring it by special vessels equipped with this liquid gas facilities, storage facilities. So, but 2040, China will use now 340 billion cubic meter consumed. Now in 2020, they will consume 360. So it will be such a big speed, and the proportion will even stay larger for pipeline and liquid LNG. That's why even the American export to China LNG is not under the tariff war subject. So China need badly natural gas in near future to meet this energy demand there and clean air in China. So I think this economics of this pipeline from Kovitinsky through Mongolia to China has the most sense for the supplier and the buyer.
And another thing that seems to be discussed a little bit during the forum was that Russia was thinking about giving Mongolia 100 billion rubles soft loan, which would be used for Ulaanbaatar railway upgrades as well as the upgrades of some power plants. So what do you think of these upgrades?
Well, Mongolians borrow cheaper money from wherever it's possible, and Russia is offering 100 billion ruble of the discounted loan to Mongolia a couple of years ago, and we are trying to find the projects definitely, and because the government keeps changing, Mongolia is always very slow with this kind of decisions. Finally, if it's final, they say that now they will get it for, as you said, for renovation of Russia. Russia basically built the power station number 3, power station number 4. But renewing them is how much it has a merit is another issue, because it's all technology. I don't know, with the environmental point of view, etc. Still people have some reservations on that. But for railway renovation, that's something the most needed, most discussed, and very long waited. So finally, it looks like will move. Finally, Mongolia may have a parallel line of railways through Mongolia, which is now one. And at the stations, they make a chance, give a chance to other train to go through, and then it takes. This is the way how it is made now. Unfortunately, that makes very inefficient the transport movement. But however, as Mr. Putin said, Mongolian Railway, or it's called Ulaanbaatar Railway, which is joint venture with Russia, had 3 times more transit cargo last year than a year before, which is good to remark, but it is over capacity of these railways. So hopefully they will do it, but only my concern is probably they will do it only when they will change the CEO by a Russian person. Because historically it was always a Russian person. Since 1990 we have been combining, switching. The last 2 or 3 Mongolian CEOs always had some corruption problem, etc. So Russians most probably will change the current Mongolian CEO with a Russian nominee. And then finally, probably this project should go at least. It's a very long talk project.
And moving to our second topic of the night was the teacher strike that just temporarily suspended. So the strike was mainly about increase in wages and such. So one of the programs that was suggested was increasing salaries of teachers by the number of students over the norm. Could you explain this?
Yeah, this was just not the major decisions,
Yeah.
but I think people were more demanding. They were more social pressure on those teachers who were on a strike. Why you would have a strike when you have increased from 30 up to 30%, from 8 to 30%? Some got different rate of increase of salary, and you have a no moral right to do so, to have such a bad behavior in front of your students, so you cannot do that morally, you cannot do that. This sort of social pressure was a lot in Mongolia for these teachers, but actually teachers demand their salary, and the final decision was, as you said, the solution was those teachers who have more workloads will have more. That's the agreement. They have stopped for this time now. But however, this raises an issue of how much we have clear the scheme of payment for social workers, including teachers, hospital workers, doctors, nurses. Because if there should be on two sides. One is that depending on the job functions, one scheme for salary. The other one is to be depending on the overload of the schemes, right? It's two different things. And I think hopefully Mongolia will do now, have into consideration all these two factors. At least it's that what have agreed with the teachers. And but the issue is even larger because real wage and inflation goes together. If one increases, the other increase. This is the phenomena, economic indicators that every country, every economists watch. Which one goes for how? But it is at the level of, say, under 3, 4, 5%. This can be basically can go related proportionally. But when you have a crisis like in Mongolia now around 8%, or even high, if it will go higher, it will be not possible. So it's a matter of having, in general, the economics health better. Inflation means that the economy has a lot heat. So it's 8% heat. It should be under 5 to be normal. And the Mongolian economy has a little space to have this load because as a Minister of Finance, current Minister of Finance, Hurulbatar said recently, when I became a minister, we had to pay for just interest of our loan 1.4 trillion Tugriks. Meanwhile, our total pension fund was 1.7 trillion Tugriks. So this economy is clearly not healthy. If you just pay for interest rate that amount of money, like almost equal to your pension fund. So now question is coming. Why the government has so large debt that the just interest is so high? And if we have an answer for why, then where this money have gone? Where are this clear, comprehensive report on expenditure of Chinggis Khan, Kubilai Khan, number of Hans? Very not clear why they would call their debt by the names of your emperors. But however, the question is why the government is not until now giving full disclosure of all this money expenditure. Why? Because these two political power have been misusing equally all these funds, and they keep stopping each other to give clear report. Many things, many people should have a criminal responsibility because, I mean, where is the money? What was the efficiency of the money? Why we are paying all this interest rate that much? So that we cannot even cover all basic expenses, including teacher salary. So that's the issue to pay attention.
And how do you think these issues, such as salary increases, should be of the education sector be solved, do you think?
In the normal economy, you do as much as you can. The country is spending, I don't know, 5-10% of your budget for education, salary, or education. Altogether, it goes 20 almost percent in for education and for education and healthcare in Mongolia. But that should be enough to, we should do it as much as we can within the capacity we have, provided that the state is responsible for other expenses more careful, and we don't much borrow, and we don't much have we must have not many state-owned enterprises, which actually in life it is party-owned enterprises. Almost all of them work with losses. That means they are subsidized from the budget, and that money, instead of covering the mistakes, profit losses of the state-owned companies, this money should go to cover the the education and medical care expenses, their salaries, etc. So in Mongolia, this balance we have lost already, and we need to bring it back to check and balance our expenses for social needs, education, medical care, and to cut down the expenses that we can survive without. Expensive cars, a lot of trips. I mean, Mongolia should live accordingly to its capacity. But politicians think differently. They always do more, spend more, and they always tend to borrow because they're borrowing for long term. Payment is coming for the next politicians, next generation is not for them. So that's the key lessons of our economy for last 10 or so years.
And moving on to our third topic tonight, a study was conducted by the Asia Foundation in partnership with the Global Affairs Canada and the Mongolian Bar Association on the legal misconduct and verdicts of Mongolia's legal environment. So what was in this report or in this study that was of significance?
Well, this is Mongolian Bar Association, lawyers associations.
Yeah.
It's like any lawyers association in the world. It's an NGO that is to do with the ethics, professional behavior, or improvement of their lawyers or everybody in justice who's working in justice system. And good thing is they have some ethics committee inside of that union or association, and that ethics committee have been receiving complaints from people about misconduct of lawyers, advocates, prosecutors. I don't know exactly how. I'm not a lawyer, so the lawyers and the prosecutors, they have been receiving complaints very interestingly, and I find it's very important survey. Before doing that survey, they made all cases reported into one small brochure. Inside they have been noted all these cases. For example, they have a total 933 complaints connected with lawyers, and 791 complaints connected with 933 lawyers, and 15% of them have shifted to related organizations, but 40% of them discussed in that ethics committee, and 45% they have refused to discuss it. So minor they found. And in that brochure they have mentioned, for example, there are many cases, 70-40 cases there, but I found very interesting couple of things where one prosecutor got 1 million 2 weeks from a person who needs a prosecutor. So he said, okay, give me half now, and I didn't call anymore, for example. And that person had a complaint to that ethics committee. The other case were the similar case, but 5 million 2 weeks, exactly the same. The lawyer, they put the name abbreviated, not the full name in the report. And that person also said that, I think it was she, and she got the 2.5 million tourists beforehand, before the case that she had also disappeared. So this sort of misconduct that that's undermined the reputation of lawyers. Well, the Mongolian justice system had a lot undermined its own reputation. Mongolians less and less believe in this justice system because of this large corruption cases which slowly, one by one, disappearing. And I think it is because this justice system, our law, court, all are completely dependent on the rulers, dependent on the parliament, on the government. So they do only what the parliament and government want them to do, and they make decisions only what their bosses do. Unfortunately, that's the problem of Mongolian democracy, where we don't have an independent justice system now. So all these cases they have studied, and then they made a conclusion, not small, big, long conclusion, 230 pages document, and at the end there is their conclusions, which, for example, says, for example, the lawyers' rights are regulated by law, but under this ethics committee, only prosecutors are considered, not the other part of law, not laws, no court, no judges. Cases were considered by this Bar Association's ethics committee, unfortunately. So it's very narrow. Just out of all this justice workers, only we have talked about this prosecutors. The other one is the system of database of the legal complaints about lawyers and all this justice officers are not perfect, very much one-sided. That's the one conclusion. The other conclusion is, final one, there are several conclusions, but just to share with you is that they give, this ethics committee decision is to give certain warnings and to ask the related authority to stop the right of being prosecutor. And when they give warning, it should be private, so nobody knows what kind of warnings that lawyer got it. So this is not efficient, etc., etc. This was the conclusion of the survey. We bring the issue because justice is something that, unfortunately, who said? I think Bastia said that justice is there in that where the injustice is in absence. So Mongolia has to go way long to see injustice in absence.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you for joining us for this evening's DeFacto review. Please join us next week at the same time for another weekly roundup of the biggest stories shaping Mongolia. Good night.
Thank you very much.